Roy Orbison's voice could shatter your heart. His music, steeped in sorrow and longing, became the soundtrack for anyone who had ever loved and lost. But behind that operatic tone and signature pair of dark sunglasses was a man grappling with pain so deep, it blurred the line between art and agony. For years, fans saw only glimpses of the mystery. Now that mystery is finally unraveling, and it's far darker than anyone imagined. Born on April 23, 1936, in Vernon, Texas, Roy Kelton Orbison grew up during the bleak final stretch of the Great Depression. His family, humble and hardworking, couldn't shield him from hardship, but they did hand him his first guitar at just 6 years old. By 8, he was singing on the local radio, already reaching for a world beyond his small town. Music became his escape, his language, and eventually his identity. He grew up idolizing Hank Williams, Bing Crosby, and the Southern gospel sounds echoing through Texas churches. After moving to Wink, Texas, Orbison formed his first band in high school, the Wink Westerners. It was here that he began shaping a musical style that would one day defy genre and expectation. His first shot at fame came in the late 1950s with Sun Records, the same label that launched Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. But Orbison's rockabilly beginnings didn't quite click with audiences. It wasn't until his move to Monument Records that everything changed. Under the mentorship of producer Fred Foster, Orbison found his sound, a blend of rock, pop, country, and even classical music, all elevated by his ethereal 3-octave voice. Then came Only the Lonely in 1960. With its haunting melodies and aching lyrics, it launched a streak of ballads that would define his career. Crying, In Dreams, It's Over, and the unforgettable Oh, Pretty Woman. These weren't just love songs, they were laments, full of emotional depth that set him apart in an era obsessed with youth and rebellion. While other rock stars thrived on defiance, Orbison sang about loss, heartbreak, and loneliness. Dressed in black, his face unreadable behind dark shades, he created an image as haunting as his sound. Fans dubbed him the Caruso of rock. But behind the mystique was a man carrying unimaginable grief. The 1970s weren't kind to Orbison. His fame faded, his records charted lower, but he never stopped creating. Then, in the 1980s, everything shifted. A new generation of artists, Springsteen, Dylan, Petty, publicly hailed him as one of the greatest voices in music. In 1981, a Grammy win for That Loving You Feeling Again rekindled his star power. By the decade's end, he joined the traveling Wilburys, a supergroup that included Bob Dylan, George Harrison, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne. Orbison, under the playful alias Lefty Wilbury, delivered unforgettable performances, reminding the world what it had been missing. In 1987, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Bruce Springsteen described his voice as the voice of heartbreak, a fitting tribute to a man who lived inside the very pain he so beautifully sang about. But Orbison's personal life was marked by tragedy that went far beyond what the public ever saw. Just 21, Roy married his young sweetheart Claudette Frady. Their love burned fast and bright. Claudette inspired some of his most famous songs, and together they had 3 sons. But joy was short-lived. In 1966, Claudette was killed in a motorcycle accident, just after the two had reconciled following a separation. The loss was crushing. Then, just 2 years later, disaster struck again. While Roy was performing in England, a fire tore through his home in Tennessee. His 2 eldest sons, Roy Jr. and Anthony, perished in the blaze. Only the youngest, Wesley, survived. He had been staying with his grandparents that night. The weight of grief was staggering. Orbison withdrew from public life, broken by the twin tragedies that had decimated his family. Hope returned when he met Barbara Jacobs, a German-born music executive who became both his wife and his emotional anchor. They married in 1969, had 2 sons, and Barbara eventually took an active role in managing his career. Her unwavering support helped Roy navigate his resurgence in the 1980s. But behind the scenes, the emotional scars remained. Then came Mystery Girl, the final album released just before his sudden death in 1988. It was a triumph, full of haunting beauty. But it wasn't a happy ending. What fans didn't know was that Roy was running on fumes, suffering from heart issues, migraines, and relentless stress. He died of a heart attack at just 52 years old. The world mourned, but the true extent of his suffering remained hidden, until now. Years later, personal journals, interviews, and uncovered medical records began to paint a fuller, more harrowing picture. As a teenager, Orbison underwent a series of experimental sinus surgeries. Meant to treat a chronic breathing issue, some believe the procedures, performed during a time of loose medical ethics, may have physically altered his vocal structure. That iconic voice, the one that could soar and shatter and soothe, may have come at a terrible price: years of chronic pain, migraines, and increasing reclusion. More devastating was the psychological toll. According to those close to him, Orbison carried untreated trauma for most of his life. His public stoicism masked private turmoil, addiction to painkillers, episodes of deep depression, and journal entries that reveal thoughts of walking away from music, or worse. His sons, now grown, have since worked to preserve his legacy. In 2014, they helped complete The Way Is Love, a previously unheard demo. Using their father's original vocals, and with help from producer John Carter Cash and Jeff Lynne, they created a tribute that felt like a bridge between past and future, a final message from a man whose music had always spoken the words he couldn't. The truth about Roy Orbison isn't a neat story of fame and redemption. It's the story of a man who turned pain into beauty, who gave us everything he had while carrying a burden no one fully understood. His mystery is no longer unsolved. But knowing the truth only deepens the sadness and the awe. Roy Orbison didn't just sing about heartbreak. He lived it.